Below is a balanced analytical article, not alarmist, on how different countries are preparing for the possibility of a major global conflict, often discussed in media as World War III. Are countries preparing for World War III? A global analysis of military, economic, and strategic readiness. Introduction. The phrase World War III is frequently used in political debates, news headlines, and social media discussions. While no government officially claims to be preparing for a third world war, many major powers are strengthening military capabilities, alliances, and domestic resilience in response to rising global tensions. These preparations reflect a changing world order marked by regional conflicts, great power rivalry, cyber warfare, and economic competition. This article examines how different countries and blocs are preparing for large-scale conflict, not necessarily a world war, but scenarios involving high-intensity, multi-domain warfare. 1. United States Global Military Readiness and Alliance Leadership. The United States maintains the largest and most technologically advanced military in the world. Its preparations focus on deterrence rather than direct war planning. Key areas of preparation: modernization of nuclear forces, land, sea, air triad; expansion of Indo-Pacific military presence to counter China; heavy investment in AI, cyber warfare, space defense, and hypersonic weapons, strengthening alliances such as NATO, AUKUS, and Quad large-scale joint military exercises across Europe and Asia strategy. The U.S. emphasizes power projection and collective defense, aiming to prevent war by making conflict too costly for adversaries. 2. China. Long-term strategic and technological expansion. China's military strategy is focused on regional dominance and global influence, particularly in Asia. Key areas of preparation: rapid expansion of the People's Liberation Army, PLA; development of anti-ship missiles, cyber warfare units, and space capabilities; increased naval power, including aircraft carriers; civil-military integration; industries support defense production; military drills around Taiwan and the South China Sea strategy. China prepares for information-driven warfare, aiming to win conflicts quickly through technological superiority rather than prolonged battles. 3. Russia. War economy and hybrid warfare. Russia has shifted toward a war-oriented economy, particularly after prolonged regional conflicts. Key areas of preparation: large-scale conventional ground forces; strong reliance on nuclear deterrence; cyber attacks; disinformation campaigns; and electronic warfare; increased domestic arms production; military cooperation with non-Western partners. Strategy: Russia focuses on hybrid warfare, blending military force with political pressure, cyber operations, and economic tools. 4. NATO and Europe. Defensive mobilization. European countries, especially NATO members, are significantly increasing defense readiness. Key areas of preparation: higher military spending across Europe; expansion of rapid response forces, stockpiling ammunition and energy reserves; civil defense planning and infrastructure protection; reinforcing eastern borders. Strategy: Europe emphasizes collective defense and deterrence, aiming to prevent escalation rather than initiate conflict. 5. India. Strategic autonomy and regional security. India balances relations with both Western and Eastern powers while preparing for regional threats. Key areas of preparation: modernization of armed forces; development of indigenous defense industries; cyber and space defense programs; border infrastructure expansion; naval growth in the Indian Ocean strategy. India focuses on defensive preparedness and strategic autonomy, avoiding formal military blocs while remaining ready for regional conflicts. 6. Middle East. Regional arms buildup. Several Middle Eastern countries are increasing military capacity due to regional instability. Key areas of preparation: missile defense systems, drone and air defense technologies, military alliances and proxy forces; civil defense and emergency preparedness. Strategy: Preparation is largely regional, aimed at deterrence and survival, rather than global warfare. 7. New domains of war: cyber, space, and economy. Modern conflict preparation goes far beyond soldiers and tanks. Non-traditional preparations include cybersecurity infrastructure to protect power grids and communications, space defense for satellites and navigation systems, economic resilience, including supply chain security, information warfare and control of narratives, civil resilience, emergency planning, disaster response. These domains suggest that any future global conflict would be multidimensional, not just fought on battlefields. Are these preparations proof of World War III? Not necessarily. Key points to understand. Most countries claim their actions are defensive. Deterrence aims to prevent, not provoke. War global institutions still work to reduce escalation. Economic interdependence discourages total war. However, miscalculation, regional escalation, or technological accidents remain serious risks. Conclusion. While the world is not officially preparing for World War III, many countries are preparing for a more dangerous, uncertain future. Military modernization, alliance building, cyber defense, and economic resilience are responses to a rapidly changing global security environment. The challenge for humanity is ensuring that preparation remains a tool for deterrence and stability, not a path toward catastrophic conflict. Part 2. Internal Preparedness, Civil Defense, and Global Risks. 8. Civil Defense and Population Preparedness. In modern conflict planning, civilian readiness is becoming as important as military strength. Several countries are quietly updating civil defense systems. Examples of civil preparedness: emergency shelters and bunkers, especially in Europe and East Asia; public guidance on blackouts, cyber outages and supply disruptions; national drills for disaster and wartime emergencies; strengthening healthcare systems for mass casualty scenarios; protection of food, water, and energy infrastructure. Countries like Japan, South Korea, Finland, and Switzerland have long traditions of civilian preparedness, while others are now reviving Cold War-era planning. 9. Economic and industrial war preparation. A future global conflict would not only be fought with weapons, but also with factories, resources, and trade controls. Key economic preparations: defense industrial expansion to ensure weapon supply, stockpiling critical materials, fuel, semiconductors, rare earths, reducing dependence on rival nations for essential goods, sanctions planning and financial warfare, protection of shipping routes and trade corridors. Economic resilience is now viewed as a national security priority, as disruptions can weaken a country without a single shot being fired. 10. Information warfare and media control. Modern conflicts rely heavily on information dominance. Information warfare includes cyber attacks on media and communication platforms, disinformation and propaganda campaigns, psychological operations to weaken public morale, social media influence, and narrative control, AI-generated misinformation threats. Governments are investing in counter-disinformation. 11. Smaller nations and strategic neutrality. Not all countries prepare by building massive armies. Some focus on neutrality and diplomacy. Neutral strategies include strong internal defense with limited external involvement, active diplomacy and mediation roles, international law and humanitarian focus, balanced trade relations with multiple power blocs. Countries like Switzerland, Austria, and some Southeast Asian nations prioritize survival through neutrality, not confrontation. 12. The risk factors that could trigger a global conflict. Despite deterrence strategies, several dangers remain. Major risk factors: escalation of regional wars into alliance-based conflicts, accidental military encounters or miscalculations, cyber attacks causing real-world damage, breakdown of diplomatic communication use, or threat of nuclear weapons. History shows that world wars often begin unexpectedly, not by deliberate global decisions. 13. Are nuclear weapons the ultimate deterrent? Nuclear weapons play a central role in preventing large-scale war. Reality of nuclear deterrence: prevents direct conflict between major powers, raises the cost of escalation to catastrophic levels, encourages proxy and indirect conflicts instead, creates long-term global fear and instability. While nuclear weapons reduce the chance of total war, they increase the stakes of any misstep. 14. The role of diplomacy and international institutions. Despite rising tensions, diplomacy remains active. Stabilizing forces, United Nations peace efforts, back-channel negotiations between rivals, arms control and military communication hotlines, trade and cultural exchanges, crisis de-escalation mechanisms. These systems are imperfect but essential for preventing catastrophe. 15. Final assessment. Preparation or prevention? The current global situation reflects a paradox. Countries prepare for war in order to prevent it. Most nations are not seeking World War III, but they are preparing for worst-case scenarios due to uncertainty and mistrust. Conclusion. The world is entering an era of heightened vigilance rather than inevitable war. Military buildup, civil defense planning, and economic resilience reflect fear of instability, not a desire for destruction. Whether humanity moves toward cooperation or conflict depends on responsible leadership, effective diplomacy, public awareness, international cooperation. The future is not predetermined. Preparation can either protect peace or accelerate conflict. Part 3. Possible future scenarios and global outcomes. 16. Scenario 1. Cold War-style standoff, most likely. In this scenario, global powers avoid direct war but engage in constant strategic competition. Characteristics: military buildups without direct confrontation, proxy conflicts in smaller regions, cyber warfare and economic sanctions, space and technology competition, strong alliance blocks. Outcome: global tension remains high, but large-scale war is avoided through deterrence and diplomacy. 17. Scenario 2. Regional conflict escalates globally. A localized war could draw in multiple alliances, increasing the risk of a broader conflict. Possible triggers: Taiwan Strait crisis, Eastern Europe or Middle East escalation, major cyber attack on critical infrastructure, accidental military engagement outcome. Initial regional fighting expands, but global leaders attempt to contain the conflict to avoid total war. 18. Scenario 3. Hybrid world war without formal declaration. Future wars may not be officially declared as world wars. Features: cyber attacks shutting down power grids, financial system disruption, information warfare, shaping public opinion, economic blockades and sanctions, limited conventional fighting outcome. Societies experience long-term instability without traditional battlefield warfare. 19. Scenario 4. Technological shock or accident. Advanced technologies increase efficiency, but also risk. High-risk technologies, artificial intelligence in weapon systems, autonomous drones, space-based weapons, hypersonic missiles, nuclear command and control systems. Outcome: a technical failure or misinterpretation could cause rapid escalation before diplomacy can respond. 20. Impact on civilians in daily life. In any large-scale conflict, civilians face the greatest consequences. Civilian effects: supply shortages and inflation, power and communication outages, travel restrictions, refugee crises, psychological stress and fear. Preparation increasingly focuses on civilian survival, not just military victory. 21st Global Youth and Future Generations. Young people will shape the future response to conflict. Youth roles: advocating for peace and diplomacy, countering misinformation online, innovation in conflict prevention, international cooperation and education. A more informed generation can reduce the risk of repeating history. 22. The media's role in preventing panic. Media can either escalate fear or promote understanding. Responsible media practices, fact-based reporting, avoiding sensationalism, contextualizing military actions, highlighting diplomatic efforts. Public perception strongly influences political decision-making. 23. Lessons from past world wars. History offers critical warnings. Key lessons: alliances can both protect and entrap nations. Economic instability fuels conflict. Miscommunication leads to disaster. Nationalism can override rational decision-making. Remembering history is essential to avoiding its repetition. 24. Can World War III be prevented? Yes, prevention is possible. Prevention strategies, strong international dialogue, arms control agreements, cyber and AI regulations, economic cooperation, cultural and educational exchange. Peace requires constant effort, not passive hope. Final conclusion of the series. World War III is not inevitable, but the risks are real. Countries prepare because uncertainty dominates the global system. Whether preparation leads to protection or destruction depends on choices made today. The future of the world will be decided not only by armies and weapons, but by wisdom, cooperation, and restraint. Part 4. Global Power Shifts in the Future World Order. 25. Changing balance of global power. One of the main reasons countries are increasing preparedness is the shift from a unipolar to a multipolar world. Key changes: decline of single superpower dominance, rise of regional powers, competing political and economic systems, increased rivalry over technology and resources. This shift creates uncertainty, which often leads nations to strengthen defense and security systems. 26. Role of emerging powers. Several emerging nations are increasing their global influence. Examples: expanding military and economic reach, investing in domestic defense industries, strengthening regional alliances, playing major roles in energy and trade routes. These countries are not seeking world war, but want to protect national interests in a competitive environment. 27. Technology as the new battlefield. Future conflicts will be shaped more by technology than troop numbers. Critical technologies: artificial intelligence for decision-making, quantum computing and encryption, cyber surveillance and defense systems, drone swarms and autonomous weapons. Space-based communication and monitoring. Control over technology may determine victory without traditional warfare. 28. Climate change as a conflict multiplier. Climate change indirectly increases the risk of conflict. Conflict drivers: water and food scarcity, climate-induced migration, natural disasters overwhelming governments, competition over arable land and energy. These pressures can destabilize regions and increase military tensions. 29. Energy security and resource competition. Energy remains a strategic priority. Key areas of concern: oil and gas supply routes, renewable energy dominance, rare earth minerals, control of sea lanes and choke points. Countries are preparing to secure resources during global disruptions. 30. Space, the next strategic frontier. Space is now a recognized domain of warfare. Space security measures: anti-satellite weapons development, satellite defense systems, military space commands, protection of GPS and communication networks. Disabling satellites could paralyze modern societies within hours. 31. Psychological and social impact of permanent tension. Constant global tension affects societies. Social effects: increased anxiety and fear. Nationalistic attitudes, political polarization, distrust between nations. Managing public psychology is now part of national security planning. 32. Ethical challenges of modern warfare. Advanced weapons raise serious moral questions. Ethical concerns: AI making life and death decisions, civilian harm from remote warfare, accountability for cyber attacks, privacy erosion through surveillance. Global rules have not yet caught up with modern technology. 33. Responsibility of global leadership. Leadership decisions matter more than ever. Leadership duties: avoid reckless escalation, maintain open communication, respect international law, balance strength with restraint. History shows that poor leadership choices often ignite global disasters. 34. A warning from history and the present. Today's world mirrors past pre-war periods in some ways, but it also has stronger institutions and communication tools. The challenge is ensuring that competition does not turn into catastrophe. Closing reflection. Part 4. Preparing for conflict is a reality of modern geopolitics, But preventing conflict is a responsibility shared by all nations. Military readiness must be balanced with diplomacy, cooperation, and humanity. The most powerful weapon in the modern world is not force, but wisdom. Part 5, Role of Ordinary Citizens, Peace Building, and Hope for the Future, 35. How ordinary citizens are affected. In any large global conflict, ordinary people are not spectators. They are the most affected. Possible effects on daily life: rising prices and inflation, job insecurity and economic slowdown, disruptions to internet, electricity, and fuel, travel restrictions and migration pressures, increased fear and uncertainty. This is why modern governments increasingly focus on societal resilience, not just military strength. 36. Citizen preparedness without panic. Preparedness does not mean fear or militarization of society. Responsible preparedness includes emergency awareness, first aid, disaster readiness, digital literacy to identify misinformation, community cooperation and mutual support, energy and resource conservation, trust in verified information sources. Strong communities are harder to destabilize than heavily armed ones. 37. The power of education and awareness. Education plays a major role in preventing global conflict. Why education matters: reduces susceptibility to propaganda, encourages critical thinking, promotes understanding between cultures, teaches lessons from history, builds empathy and global responsibility. An informed population pressures leaders to choose dialogue over destruction. 38. Peace-building efforts around the world. Despite rising tensions, peace efforts continue globally. Examples of peace building: diplomatic mediation between rival nations, international peacekeeping missions, humanitarian cooperation during disasters, cultural and academic exchange programs, arms control and confidence-building measures. Peace is often quiet, slow, and unnoticed, but essential. 39. Role of international organizations. Global institutions still matter. Key contributions: crisis mediation and negotiation platforms, humanitarian aid delivery, monitoring ceasefires and human rights, facilitating global cooperation on climate and health. While imperfect, these organizations help prevent conflicts from spiraling out of control. 40. Can technology be used for peace? Technology is not only a weapon, it can be a tool for peace. Peace-oriented uses of technology: early warning systems for conflict prevention, AI-assisted diplomacy and negotiation analysis, secure communication between rival states, fact-checking and counter-disinformation. 41. The moral responsibility of humanity. Modern warfare threatens all of civilization. Ethical realities: no nation wins a global war. Civilian suffering outweighs military gains. Environmental damage lasts generations. Moral costs cannot be reversed. This awareness is one of the strongest reasons global leaders hesitate to escalate conflicts. Part 6. Solutions, reforms, and a path away from global war. 44. Why wars start despite preparation. Even with diplomacy and institutions, wars still happen. Common causes: fear and mistrust between nations. Arms races creating insecurity, miscommunication, or false intelligence. Domestic political pressure, desire for dominance or control. Understanding these causes is essential to stop history from repeating itself. 45. Reforms needed in global security systems. Current global systems were designed after World War II and are struggling to manage modern realities. Needed reforms: updating international laws for cyber and AI warfare, stronger conflict prevention mechanisms, fairer representation in global institutions, faster crisis response systems, clear rules for emerging technologies. Without reform, old systems may fail under new pressures. 46. Arms control in the 21st century. Arms control is not about weakness, it is about survival. Modern arms control should address nuclear weapons modernization, autonomous and AI-powered weapons, hypersonic missile systems, space-based military technology, cyber weapons targeting civilians. Transparency and agreements reduce the risk of accidental catastrophe. 47. Trust building between rival nations. Trust does not require friendship, it requires communication. Trust building measures, military hotlines and crisis communication, joint disaster response exercises, observer missions during military drills, trade and scientific cooperation, cultural and people-to-people exchanges. Small steps can prevent large disasters. 48. Economic cooperation as a peace tool. Countries deeply connected economically are less likely to fight full-scale wars. Peace through cooperation, shared infrastructure projects, global supply chain cooperation, fair trade agreements, joint climate and energy initiatives. Economic cooperation makes war too costly to choose. 49. Climate action as conflict prevention. Climate change is a silent security threat. Preventive climate actions, water-sharing agreements, climate-resilient agriculture, disaster response cooperation, renewable energy partnerships. Solving climate problems together reduces future conflicts. 50. Role of youth and future leaders. Young people will inherit the consequences of today's decisions. Youth contributions, promoting peace through education, fighting misinformation online, supporting global cooperation, demanding ethical leadership. Every generation has the power to change direction. 51. A world beyond. World wars. The idea of World War III reflects fear, but also awareness. A better alternative, competition without violence, strength without aggression, security without destruction, progress without domination. Humanity has the knowledge to avoid total war if it chooses wisely. 52. Final words, choice over destiny. History is not destiny. World wars are not inevitable events. They are human decisions, and so is peace. The preparations seen today can either protect humanity or endanger it. The difference lies in leadership, cooperation, and global responsibility. End of the complete article series. This series has explored military and civil preparations, global power dynamics, risks and future scenarios, citizen roles and peace-building solutions and hope. The ultimate message is clear. Preparation must never replace prevention. Part 7. Questions, clarifications, and key concepts 53. Frequently asked. Question, is World War III inevitable? No. While risks exist, inevitability does not. History shows that many large wars were avoided through diplomacy, deterrence, and cooperation. Why it's not inevitable. Nuclear deterrence discourages total war. Global economies are deeply interconnected. Instant communication reduces misunderstanding. Public opinion strongly opposes global war preparation, reflects fear of uncertainty, not a decision to fight. 54. Frequently asked question, why do countries keep increasing military spending? Countries increase military budgets mainly for deterrence and self-defense. Main reasons, fear of falling behind rivals, rapid technological change, regional instability, alliance obligations, protection of national interests. Military spending is often driven by insecurity, not aggression. 55. Frequently asked a question, what makes modern wars different from past world wars? Modern conflicts are multi-domain and less visible. Differences, cyber and space warfare instead of only land battles, economic sanctions instead of invasions, information warfare instead of only propaganda posters, drones and AI instead of mass infantry. Future wars may look less dramatic but more disruptive. 56. Key term, hybrid warfare. Hybrid warfare combines conventional military force, cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, economic pressure, proxy forces. Many experts believe any future global conflict would be hybrid, not traditional. 57. Key term, deterrence. Deterrence means preventing war by making it too costly for the enemy. Types of deterrence: nuclear deterrence, military alliances, economic sanctions, technological superiority. Deterrence aims to stop war before it starts. 58. Key term, multipolar world. A multipolar world is one where power is shared among multiple major nations, rather than one dominant superpower. Effects: more competition, more uncertainty, more regional power struggles, greater need for diplomacy. This shift is a major reason global tensions are rising. 59. Exam-friendly short answer. Are countries preparing for World War III? Countries are not officially preparing for World War III, but many are strengthening military, economic, cyber, and civil defense systems due to global uncertainty, regional conflicts, and changing power balances. These preparations aim mainly at deterrence and national security rather than initiating global war. 60. 10 markers long. Answer, structure, student use. Introduction: rising global tensions have led to discussions about World War III. Body military modernization by major powers, alliance strengthening, NATO regional blocs, cyber, space, and economic warfare preparation, civil defense and societal resilience, risks of escalation and miscalculation. Conclusion: while preparations exist, global war is not inevitable. Diplomacy and cooperation remain key to prevention. 61. Key takeaways. One-page summary. No country officially wants World War III. Preparations are driven by fear and uncertainty. Modern warfare includes cyber, space, and economy. Civilians are central to resilience. Diplomacy is still the strongest defense. 62. Final educational message. Understanding global conflict preparation is not about fear. It is about awareness. Knowledge reduces panic. Awareness promotes peace. Informed citizens shape safer futures. Part 8, Comparison Tables, MCQS, and Quick Learning Tools. 63. Country-wise comparison of preparations, simplified. Main focus of preparation: country, block type of strategy, United States global alliances, advanced tech, nuclear deterrence. Deterrence and power projection, China regional dominance, cyber and naval expansion, strategic expansion, Russia hybrid warfare, nuclear strength, war economy, pressure and deterrence. NATO/Europe, collective defense, border security, defensive readiness, India, regional security, self-reliance, strategic autonomy, Middle East missile defense, regional deterrence, survival and balance. Neutral states, civil defense, diplomacy, neutral resilience. 64. Traditional war versus modern war, modern conflict preparation, traditional world wars, large armies, smaller, high-tech forces, land and sea battles. Cyber, space and information, formal declarations undeclared, hybrid conflicts, industrial weapons, AI, drones, hypersonic missiles, clear enemies, blurred threats. 65. Multiple choice questions, MCQs. Q1. What is the main purpose of military preparedness today? A. To start wars. B. To show power only. C. To deter enemies. D. To control civilians. Answer, CQ2. Which domain is most important in modern warfare? A. Only land. B. Only CC. Only air. D. Multiple domains, cyber, space, economic. Answer, DQ3. What does hybrid warfare include? A. Only nuclear weapons. B. Only soldiers. C. Cyber, propaganda, and military force. D. Peacekeeping. Answer, CQ4. Why is World War III unlikely but still discussed? A. Because leaders want war. B. Because of fear and uncertainty. C. Because history repeats automatically. D. Because media controls governments. Answer, BQ5. Which factor helps prevent global war the most? A. Bigger armies. B. Stronger borders. C. Diplomacy and communication. D. Economic collapse. Answer, C66. One paragraph answer for exams. Many countries are strengthening military, cyber, economic, and civil defense systems due to rising global tensions and uncertainty. These actions are mainly defensive and aim to deter conflict rather than start World War III. Modern warfare preparation focuses on technology, alliances, and resilience. Despite risks, diplomacy and international cooperation remain strong tools for preventing a global war. 67. Debate points for students. Argument: World War III is coming, rising military spending, increasing regional conflicts, breakdown of trust between powers, arms races, and new technologies. Argument: World War III can be prevented. Nuclear deterrence, global economic interdependence, strong international institutions, public opposition to War 68, flow of how a global conflict could start, conceptual, regional tension, alliance involvement, cyber and economic attacks, military escalation, global diplomatic intervention, either de-escalation or wider conflict 69. Teacher project tip. You can use this series as a school project, a current affairs article, a debate or speech, a revision guide for exam 70, closing line to part 8. Preparing for war is about survival. Preventing war is about wisdom.